I tell a little story about how I came, my career transitions over the years. You know, I was in ground radio maintenance, as I told you guys before, in the service, and I was an electronics team chief, which was basically in charge of the people installing ground radios at a base. And okay, this ring is going off. That means my oxygen is not doing so good. 87%. I guess I'm not breathing enough when I'm talking. So, but I'm going to have to talk and walk and get used to this stuff. Anyway, back to the story. So, I was in ground radio maintenance, and as a team chief for the last 3.5 years or so that I was in the service, I had then at the end of that tour of duty at Norton Air Force Base, I got told that I was going to get a new assignment, and that my next assignment was going to be a remote assignment, which is someplace like Turkey or Iceland or Alaska. So I wasn't too thrilled about that, because in the last year as a team chief, I had been away from home about 250 days out of the year, and I felt like I was on a remote assignment anyways, because I was never home. So I decided it was time to get out of the service. And at the time I was at Norton Air Force Base, which is in San Bernardino, which is right, an hour away from LA. So I was almost home anyway. And if I was going for the next remote, who would know where I'd get assigned after that? And, probably be in the northeast of the United States, and then have to travel and get all the way home from there. So I decided to get out of the service. And when I was looking around all over the South Bay, because there's a lot of electronics businesses in Los Angeles, a lot of aerospace, and so I was looking around at all the different locations that I could get a job, and there's plenty of places that I could work at. So I don't know if you noticed that it almost ran into that post again, flying backwards, because I was walking fast enough that I couldn't control it. Anyway, so Carol's sister Linda worked at Hughes Aircraft Company in El Segundo in the South Bay, and she told me, I was talking to her about places I could work, and she said, well, come down here to Hughes and put it in an application. They got plenty of electronics jobs. So I decided to go down and visit her in El Segundo, and got kind of general directions, because back then we didn't have MapQuest or anything. So I went down. I got off in El Segundo Boulevard, which makes sense since I was going to El Segundo. And I was driving down El Segundo Boulevard, and I saw Hughes Aircraft Company and employment opportunities in the building. And there's their recruiting office. So I went in, filled out an application, and after I was done, I called up Linda and said, hey, you want to go have lunch? And she goes, yeah, I'll be up, because it was right around lunchtime. And she said, I'll come down. I'm on the 9th floor. I'll come down. And I said, well, the building I was in was a 2-story building, so I don't know how she could be on the 9th floor. So it turns out I was at a different division of Hughes that happened to be right down El Segundo Boulevard when I was going down. And so I was at a she worked at satellites, Hughes satellites, and I was at electro-optical data systems. And so I put in an application at the wrong Hughes. And so I went over to her building, put in another application, and turns out that the electro-optical systems called me up and asked me if I wanted to come in for an interview. And I said, sure, you know, because, yeah, you need a job, right? So I went down, and they had told me the position they have was for a technician for lasers. And I said, you know, electronics, lasers that have electronics, yeah, okay. But I didn't know anything about lasers. So that night, I went to the library, and I asked them to give me every book they had on lasers. And so they got me every single book they had on lasers at the Pacoima Library. And they had everywhere from, you know, little 20-page books for kids that talked about lasers, and all the way up to, you know, college-level books that had lasers, all the details of lasers. And I read all night long, read up on the lasers. Went into the interview, and the guy was so impressed, he was telling me, yeah, well, we're going to hire you because I could talk about Q switches and the, you know, pulses and how lasers worked and all that stuff. As he was asking me questions, I pretty much knew an answer for everything he had asked. So that's how I got my job at Electro-Optical Systems and Hughes Aircraft Company, with the, you know, cramming one the night before about lasers. And the interesting thing there, I also had at the same time is AT&T, Gil Fillin, I think AT&T, was a radio and satellite, not radar systems, and they had called me up for an interview also, and I went for an interview and got accepted there. And so I was telling them, well, I have another offer at Hughes that I'm waiting to hear from, so I'll get back to you. So then I told Hughes, after they told me the offer, I said, I got a IT&T Gil Fillin offer. I'm going to wait and see how much that is. And so they said, well, how about we give you this much? And so they gave me an offer, so I went back to Gil Fillin and told them they countered the offer with a little bit more money. So I went back to Hughes and said, well, they're offering me this much, and so Hughes offered me more. And honestly, Hughes was the location was a little better anyway. So I ended up going with Hughes, but it was interesting that they kind of helped me bump up my salary a little bit by going to different, by giving me offers for a different amount of money. So anyway, that's how I came to work at Hughes Electronics. All right, well, battery's low, so I'm going to stop now.